Welcome to the DSO Hygienist podcast, where we deep dive into the world of DSO hygiene. I'm your host, Christine Deal. I'm a practicing clinical hygienist with over 30 years of experience. 7 years ago, my private practice was bought by a DSO. I am an advocate for hygienists working in the DSO space. Your journey to happiness and success begins here.
Heather McGuire has over 2 decades of experience in the dental industry. Heather has held a variety of roles, starting as a dental assistant and advancing through positions like dental hygienist, sales account manager, regional hygiene manager, regional clinical success manager, and hygiene consultant. Today, she serves as the Director of Dental Hygiene Development. Her journey has spanned both private practice and DSOs, where she's also taken on consulting roles to enhance clinical and operational outcomes. Beyond the dental field, she is deeply passionate about mental health and wellness. She is a master practitioner of Neuro-Linguistic Programming, NLP, mental and emotional release and hypnosis, and is also a master certified NLP coach. As a success and development coach, she specializes in identifying and transforming limited beliefs and negative behavioral patterns. Through hypnotherapy, focused meditation, and value analysis, she helps her clients rewire their neurological patterns to achieve lasting positive change. In both leadership and coaching, her focus is on aligning mindset, skill set, and action to drive extraordinary results. Welcome, Heather. Thank you so much for being on the podcast today. I am honored to have you in the house.
Thank you so much. I'm very, very excited to be here. I've watched you from the beginning, and I am very excited to be part of your podcast.
Yeah, you've got so many things going on right now, so I really want to get to the questions because it's just such valuable information. I want to start on the topic of DSOs. You are a DSO director, and what do you think are the key advantages of a hygienist working in a DSO compared to a traditional private practice?
So, I really believe there's advantages to both. And I think it's about really knowing where you want your career to go and maximizing what avenue is the best for you. When you look at group practices and DSOs, I feel that there's a lot of offerings that maybe private practices don't have, where you can really practice as a clinician at the very top of your licensure and also have the ability to maximize your earning potentials. In my experience, sometimes group practices or DSOs have the ability to bring in more resources and they're more connected and have the abilities to offer more comprehensive treatment plans, more robust treatment plans, where sometimes private practices, unfortunately, are limited to what they can offer, sometimes due to a financial place, from a financial place. Um, Also, with a DSO, I feel there's a lot of room to grow. It's and that's where I said really knowing where you want your career path to go. With DSOs, I feel there's layers of support and leadership. So if you
Mm-hmm.
wanted to grow into an operational side, or if you wanted to grow into a clinical role, such as something that I have, there's a lot of paths to grow outside of the operatory.
Yeah, opportunity for sure. So, how does working for a DSO impact your professional development and the career growth opportunities? So, in yours, is there a mentorship program? Like, how do you grow the career through a DSO?
There's so many places to grow within a DSO, and like we just talked about in the last question, there's room to grow for mentorship, where maybe you have a hybrid role where you're in the chair still practicing a couple days a week, and you're able to work with senior leadership to help roll out new protocols, roll out new products. You could go into even the vendor partner side. I feel there's a lot of relationships are built between our vendor partners and the DSO, and you get to network more. And like I just feel it's so exciting that there's so many different places that you could take your career. And it's knowing where you want to go. It's measuring and tracking what's trackable so that your resume stands out. And it's not just a job description. And it's the bigger your organizations are, there's more opportunities. But even in my organization, we're startups, so I get to build all of this. And I don't know what the teams are going to look like because I don't know where we're going to be at when we're at 25 locations. But I know a good leader knows that they can't do it alone. So I personally am always looking for who has that desire to want more, and that's who I want to build my teams with.
Yeah, that's my favorite part of the DSO is the support. I really love that, and the collaboration between hygienists on my end for sure. So, speaking of support, what type of resources do DSOs provide to enhance the day-to-day work job satisfaction?
I think you just talked on it and you just hit on some of it. You have a community right at your fingertips. Sometimes when you're in a private practice, you're a solo hygienist and there's nobody to bounce off ideas off. There's nobody to collaborate with. There's nobody to say like, hey, can you help me look at this patient and what stage and grade do we think they are, or what treatment would you do? So I think that's one of the best parts of being in a DSO is that you have a community right at your fingertips. And I know we use Microsoft Teams, so we build out those Teams channels for every different segment. It's kind of like different Facebook groups, like, oh, if we're doing laser, I'm going to be in the laser group. If we're doing oral cancer screenings, I can be in the oral cancer screening group. So you can talk about topics at hand. So that's one of the things that I feel is really beneficial when you are a DSO hygienist. The other thing is just having those layers of support and reaching out and being willing to be mentored to be able to grow and taking advantage of the free CE courses that are offered and really just being involved is where I've grown a lot of my career.
Yeah.
So that's what I encourage all my teams to do as well.
Yeah. And I also love the vendor resources too. Like there's always somebody that you can turn to about a product or new software or whatever. So that's really awesome.
Absolutely.
So I want to talk a little bit about an organization you're involved in called Sober Life Rocks. If you could tell us a little bit about it.
Yes, I would love to. So, Sober Life Rocks is my heart project. I am a founding member of the organization. Laura Nelson and Mari Schaller founded it last fall. They were at the Do Retreat and started talking. Laura was on stage or giving a presentation and started talking about what it's like to be sober and how so many times, especially as professional women, we tend to hide if we are in recovery. And she took a little survey, a poll of the audience, and asked how many people in that room were in recovery currently or at some other point in their life. And about 15 people had raised their hand, and everybody knew each other professionally, but nobody knew that part of each other.
Mm-hmm.
So they said this has to change. And so they founded Sober Life Rocks. And it's kind of in a really exciting, evolving place right now because it started off really just in the dental space of how do we network better where we don't have the sole focus being around alcohol. If you go to any of the networking conferences and events, a lot of times those opportunities to have the vendor relationships or meet other DSOs are kind of like how you and I met at Midwinter. A lot of times, if it's an after the event happened, it's at a a cocktail hour, a happy hour, a wine tasting, something like that. And when you
Sure.
do struggle with alcohol, or you choose not to drink for even religious reasons, sometimes that gets uncomfortable. So, Sober Life Rocks is really about coming together as professionals and saying, how do we support one another? And how do we remove the stigma of what's in your cup versus what's in my cup? And then what does it look like to be a sober woman? And I got sober when I was still as a practicing hygienist. Um, I was on a podcast recently where I talked a little bit more in depth about it, about I was scared to get sober. I was scared of what it would look like for my professional license. I was afraid that if somebody found out that I was going to lose my career. Um, and there's people who I had known some doctors who had gotten in trouble for alcohol related offenses, and they had to go through a lot of reporting and a lot of work to keep your license or get it back when you've had an
Sure.
offense. So I was afraid. So one of the things that Sober Life Rocks is doing is really removing that stigma and helping support you. They don't help get you sober. I want to make that, kind of clear, is it's not like a 12-step organization to help get you sober. It's now that I'm sober and I'm looking for a group of people, a community support. That's where Sober Life Rocks comes in. And you get that support when you are at conferences. You get to know other people that are in members as well. You get monthly calls, monthly like mastermind kind of group calls and expert series where you hear from other people who give tips and tricks about everything, not even just how to travel sober, but really good life advice as well too.
So,
Um,
how do you manage those kind of situations when you are at a conference?
for me, a lot of it is about having community. It is about knowing who I can scan in a room and know that if, I need to dip out and be gone for a little bit, that I can have somebody that's willing to go for a walk with me. It's about knowing my intention before I go in. So sometimes it's just a, a phone call with another sober friend. I've been sober 7.5 years, and sometimes it's tricky. Um, I've had some experiences where I've been so overwhelmed that I've locked myself in a bathroom on the floor and said, like, I can't do this anymore. I can't work this job because I don't know how to do this role and how to network and stay sober. And being part of communities like Sober Life Rocks helps me because I don't feel alone,
Yeah.
and I can talk to somebody, before, during, or after. I can meet somebody at the conference. When Sober Life Rocks is at the conventions, like at Chicago Midwinter, they have had um, morning meetups where
Nice.
and the members can meet and kind of start the day in the right mindset. So it's kind of a long-winded answer to say you need some friends.
No, I love it. And I'm not sure if it was you or someone else told me that a lot of times what they'll do is they'll have a glass of water and they'll just put a lime in it to make it more socially comfortable for them, which is kind of sad. But then people
Hmm.
think they have a drink, so they don't have to ever worry about getting another one or, and then carry that around the night. But I guess that's kind of sad that that's the position they feel they have to be in.
Yes, and I that is one of the tips that I do is I do walk around with but then you got to even ask at the bar, okay, can I have a club soda and lime? But I want it in the glass that if there was alcohol in it, you would
Right,
serve me in. So you're
right.
not sticking out like, "Hey, I'm over here in the corner drinking a juice box."
Yeah,
So that is one of the things that I know through this year Sober Life Rocks has really tried to work with is having more choices at these events that are non-alcoholic so that you don't feel like you've been banished to the kitty corner with a Capri Sun, and you can still have a fruity, fun drink with, umbrellas in it, and then it removes that like pressure of what's in your cup versus what's in my cup. And then I think it's just raising the awareness around it as well too. A lot of times it's fun and indirect pressure. If somebody doesn't know that you choose not to drink and they say, "Oh, it's been a long day, here's a drink," have one. And if you say no, how often it's pushed to say, "Oh, just one," or "It's okay, you're not driving," or they start to give you the reasons why you should drink, that sometimes you really have to like put your foot down. And I will come right out. I'm comfortable in my recovery at this point where I'll come right out and say, "No, I'm in recovery. Thank you. Trust me, you don't want me to drink." But I think it's just raising the awareness of, if somebody is not drinking, not to really push on that.
Yeah, yeah, and not to be insulted if they don't want to drink. I mean,
Yes.
I've seen that happen as well. Like, oh, like I don't know, like it's not a personal dig on you.
Yes, exactly. That's right.
Well, let's talk about the last thing that you do, because you do so many things. I want to talk about your coaching because I think it's fabulous, and I'd like to know a little bit more about it and how you do it. But what are the most common goals or challenges people seeking personal coaching? How do you tailor your approach to address those challenges?
So, when you enter into a coaching relationship, you have to be kind of clear on willing to do the work, and where do you want, where are you stuck? A coach can help you uncover where you're stuck. But there's four things needed to create change. And you have to release any of those limiting beliefs, self-sabotaging behaviors, negative emotions. And that's what really coaching helps you do. You have to envision the future. You have to envision where you want to go. And a lot of times when we want to go somewhere, we just don't know exactly where. We just like, it's easier to say what we don't want,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, like, if you're thinking about weight loss, well, what do you want? Well, I don't want to be overweight anymore. I don't want to be unhealthy. Sometimes it's hard to figure out clear and have that clear vision of where you want to go, um, and know that direction. So we have to release, we have to envision the future, we have to take action. And if you're trying to make change, big change in your life, and if you don't have that accountability partner, sometimes it's easy to fall back into old patterns because nobody's going to know. And then we have to maintain that focus on where we want to go. So every big change that I've ever had in my life, I have had a coach guide me along the way. And I have nothing but the highest regards for coaching, because that's where I've achieved the majority of my successes, is in coaching relationship containers.
Uh-huh.
So,
So how do you measure progress and success in personal coaching? And what tools or techniques do you use to help, track a client's development?
so I specifically do neuro-linguistics programming coaching, NLP for short. And the very simple way to explain what that is how your neurology, how your brain processes language to form your patterns. And a lot of our patterns are formed and developed in our unconscious mind. 90% of all of our behaviors live in our unconscious mind, and our 10% is our conscious mind. Our conscious mind is responsible for logic and reason, and our unconscious mind is where our beliefs and values and emotions live. And our sense that all lives in our unconscious mind. So a lot of times, if those our unconscious and conscious are not aligned, we feel like we're spinning in circles. Or that's where that limiting beliefs come in of I can't, or I won't, or I don't know how. And then our unconscious mind's job is to prove us right. So if we're going to say I can't, won't, don't, our unconscious mind goes to work, and our conscious mind then says, see, you can't do it.
Yeah.
So I have scientifically proven tools and techniques that have been used for decades to help really align your conscious and your unconscious mind. So that way, your goal getter and your goal setter are on the same page. And then it's easy to track and monitor because as a client, you set your own goals. And then it's just my role to say, like, how are we moving forward with that? What barriers have gotten in your way this week? And then using some kind of tool or technique to help you get out of your own way.
Yeah. I love the goal getter, goal setter. That is awesome. Well, I just want to thank you so much, Heather. You are amazing. And thank you so much for talking on different subjects about, the DSO, your Sober Life Rocks, and the coaching aspect. If our listeners would like to get in touch with you, how do they do that?
Yeah, so I'm on all social media platforms, Heather McGuire. LinkedIn, same, Heather McGuire. My website is www.mcgcoaching.com. And then my email is heather@mcgcoaching.com. And if there's any, that's more for personal. And if you have any DSO related questions or you want to learn more on how to grow your career, I am with Save a Dental Team, and I would love to have a conversation about what to do to help you reach your career growth and potential.
Thank you so much for being on the DSO Hygienist today, Heather.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to the DSO Hygienist podcast. Please follow or subscribe to be alerted of new episodes.